A forgotten desert seed outperforms beef for protein, survives brutal heat that kills modern crops, and once fed civilizations across the Southwest. So why did colonial powers erase it? And how did its disappearance leave us vulnerable to climate crisis? Modern science says this lost survival seed may be our best hope, but almost no one knows its name. Here's why. In a desert cave in northern Sonora, archaeologists uncovered sealed storage pits dating back to around 500 BCE. Inside, they found seeds preserved for over 2,000 years, intact, recognizable, and still identifiable as the same species grown by indigenous farmers today. These ancient stores were not accidental. The pits were carefully constructed, lined with clay and basketry, then sealed to keep out moisture and pests. Such systems reveal a sophisticated understanding of long-term survival in a climate where drought was always a looming threat. Laboratory analysis confirmed that the seeds belonged to a single domesticated lineage, not a mix of wild and cultivated types. In 2021, geneticists traced every living variety of this desert bean back to one domestication event, likely in the Sonoran Desert around 3000 BCE. This means that for 5 millennia, generations of farmers selected and saved the same resilient crop, passing it down through cycles of abundance and hardship. Lead archaeobotanists describe the discovery as a rare proof of intentional design. The seed's survival over 2,000 years, without refrigeration or chemical treatment, demonstrates not only the plant's natural durability, but also the ingenuity of the people who relied on it. These ancient storage techniques supported entire settlements through unpredictable seasons. Making the crop more than just a food source, it was a form of insurance against disaster. The evidence is clear. This seed was engineered by both nature and human hands to endure where others failed, and its legacy is written into the archaeological record, layer by layer. The plant's survival edge is written into its biology. Its leaves fold inward at nightfall, closing tightly to hold onto every drop of moisture. By daybreak, they remain closed through the hottest hours, reducing water loss when the desert sun is most intense. This nocturnal leaf folding is not a quirk. It is a precise adaptation, allowing the plant to thrive where almost nothing else can survive. Inside the seed, the story continues at the molecular level. Laboratory analysis confirms protein content of 20 to 25 grams per 100 grams, higher than many cuts of beef. But it is not just the quantity. The protein structure is shielded by unique amino sugars, a natural defense that keeps it stable at temperatures that would destroy most crops. Even as the ground bakes well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, these sugars prevent the seed's proteins from breaking down, preserving their nutritional value when other crops fail. The plant's roots reach deep, tapping sparse groundwater and fixing nitrogen into the soil, quietly restoring land that has been depleted by years of drought. This ability to enrich the earth, combined with its nutritional density, made it more than just a food source. It was a tool for survival, engineered by evolution and refined by generations of indigenous farmers. Every trait, from its leaf movements to its molecular defenses, is a record of adaptation, a blueprint for endurance in a world where heat and scarcity are the norm. Spanish colonial authorities in the late 1600s reshaped agriculture across the Sonoran Desert, introducing wheat and barley as the new standard for taxation and export. Mission records show that indigenous crops, including the heat-resilient desert bean, were sidelined in favor of European grains that could be counted, taxed, and controlled. Traditional fields, once planted with a mosaic of drought-adapted crops, were reorganized to fit colonial demands for uniformity and profit. Indigenous farmers faced mounting pressure to abandon their own seeds and methods. The desert bean's unpredictable ripening, once a survival advantage in erratic rainfall, became a liability in a system built for synchronized harvests. Colonial administrators dismissed crops that did not fit their order as backward, and extension agents promoted imported grains even as they failed in the region's relentless drought cycles. By the early 20th century, indigenous and smallholder farmers in Arizona and Sonora still managed to grow substantial quantities of the desert bean, supplying local markets and sustaining communities. Official statistics rarely acknowledged these efforts, folding all beans together and ignoring the unique crop that had fed the region for millennia. The arrival of mechanized agriculture in the 1930s accelerated the erasure. Cotton and wheat, tailored for machine harvest, expanded across the Southwest. The desert bean, with its staggered pod ripening and need for hand harvesting, was pushed out of commercial fields. Within 25 years, it had vanished from most supply chains, surviving only in a handful of indigenous gardens and memories. What had once been the backbone of desert survival was now invisible to the market and absent from federal crop lists, leaving a gap that would not be noticed until the next crisis arrived. In the summer of 1974, as fields across Arizona and northern Mexico withered under relentless drought, a USDA researcher named Dr. Howard Scott noticed something the official crop reports missed. Amid the collapse of soy, corn, and wheat, wild vines clung to life along forgotten arroyos, their pods maturing in temperatures that scorched everything else. These were surviving remnants of the desert bean, overlooked for decades, still yielding seeds at 115 degrees Fahrenheit with barely any irrigation. Scott documented the phenomenon, describing the crop as a gift from the past, a survival tool waiting in plain sight. Word spread through indigenous communities, where elders recognized the plant not as a relic, but as a relative. The Tohono O'odham Community Action Group, or TOCA, began gathering seeds, preserving local varieties that had endured centuries of neglect. Their work was not just about saving a crop, but about reclaiming the knowledge and stewardship that had kept it alive. In the midst of crisis, hope returned to the desert, rooted in the quiet resilience of a seed that refused to disappear. In 2019, a team led by Dr. Ana Morales at the University of Arizona set out to test the desert bean's limits under the kind of heat and drought projected for the coming decades. Field plots across Arizona and Sonora faced day after day of 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Where soybeans wilted and stopped producing pods, the desert bean kept setting seed, week after week. Water meters showed it used just 1/3 the water required by soybeans. Post-harvest soil tests revealed a gain in nitrogen, evidence that the crop was not only surviving, but actively restoring land left barren by other staples. Protein levels held steady at 20 to 25%, even in the hottest plots. These were not isolated results. Across every trial, the pattern repeated: full yields, minimal irrigation, and measurable soil improvement. Meanwhile, global climate models warned that by 2050, the world's major staples could lose up to 30% of their yield as heat and drought intensify. In this context, the bean's performance was more than impressive. It was a warning shot. The science was clear. Crops built for the last century's climate are already losing ground. The desert bean's resilience was no longer a curiosity. It was a benchmark for survival. Despite scientific validation and decades of indigenous stewardship, the desert bean remains almost entirely absent from the modern food system. The reason is not a lack of evidence, but a wall of institutional and economic barriers. Major seed corporations have no incentive to invest because the bean cannot be patented, so there is no exclusive profit to be made. Without intellectual property rights, it falls outside the business model that drives most agricultural research and seed development. In the 1990s, leading agricultural journals dismissed it as unsuitable for commercial production, not because it failed in the field, but because it did not fit the criteria for large-scale, mechanized, and proprietary crops. Federal agencies have never added it to official crop lists or subsidy programs. Today, fewer than 1% of U.S. farms grow the bean, and almost all are indigenous or community-based efforts. The silence is not accidental. It is the result of a system that rewards crops designed for patents, not for survival. A proven, climate-resilient solution sits on the sidelines, locked out by rules that value ownership over adaptation. Today, climate models warn that global crop yields could drop 30% by 2050, yet the most resilient protein source remains sidelined. Food security depends on choices we make now, not on old systems we inherit. Some seeds survive the desert. The real question is, will we let them save us?